Welcome to the Lap-In Assessment. I'm extremely pleased to have with me today Lieutenant Colonel in the Reserves, Gidi Harari. He has served for many years in the IDF Military Intelligence Directorate. He's an expert on Lebanon and on various security challenges that the state of Israel has faced and is facing. Gidi, it's great to have you on the podcast. How are you today up there in the north of Israel?
Thank you for inviting me. And well, today it's a quiet day relatively, so I'm okay.
Good to hear. You've been under intense rocket fire, you and the whole of the north by Hezbollah, and I
Yes.
think that we should really start with that because even though it's a secondary arena and it's kind of gets overshadowed by Iran, it's an extremely critical part of the war that we are facing, and it seems to me that there are some very dramatic developments, and I'd love to get your take on that. First of all, the fact that the base of Hezbollah, hundreds of thousands of Shiite civilians who are supposed to be the human shields and from whom Hezbollah recruits. Most of those people are out of southern Lebanon. They've listened to the IDF's evacuation calls and left their homes. And the bridges that connect Lebanon to southern Lebanon over the Litani River are being blown up to prevent Hezbollah from moving its terrorists and weapons down south. This seems to be a real sort of change in the landscape, in the threat landscape, and it seems to be something deeper than what we've seen before. Would you agree with that description?
Yes, I totally agree with you. Although I think that there is still remaining the bridge over the road, the main road from the south to Beirut. The bridge is still there, and maybe this is the only one, but all the rest of the bridges are blown, and most of the population, most of them, not all of them, they were evacuated already to Beirut, which is, as much as I remember, it's the first time that we are doing it, including the issue of bombing the bridges.
Mm-hmm.
And it will be very effective only if it's a prologue for the next step that will be made, which might be either entering and doing a greater terrain maneuver inside Lebanon in the southern part of the Litani, which we don't have to reach the Litani itself all over, but a larger maneuver than what was made last year, and we need to give some sign, let's say, to the base of Hezbollah, the Shiite community that lives in the south of Lebanon, which is actually the greatest center of the Shiite community in Lebanon.
Mm-hmm.
We should deliver them the message that either they will take their future in their own hands, that it means that they should quit being so friendly to Hezbollah, and or they will suffer, because we will actually, what we need to do, and I believe that this is the intention, is to demolish most of the villages I believe in about between 5 to 10 kilometers from the frontier with Israel, which is something dramatic.
Yep.
It's really something dramatic, and it's something that they cannot bear, they cannot agree to it, and this might be a game changer in South Lebanon. Although, again, I'm saying that if we will stop with the military ground maneuver, so we haven't done anything.
Right.
What I mean, and I'm saying it since the first day of the ceasefire with Lebanon, we have a great opportunity in Lebanon, and I know very well our mutual friend that thinks opposite than me.
That's, by the way,
And
one of the points of this podcast is to get multiple Israeli
yes,
perspectives out to the world. So we welcome that.
so I truly, I've been working in the Lebanese area as an intelligence officer 20 years, but I've been in the army before and living in the north for almost 40 years. I know very well the Lebanese people, and what I see is there is a new vibe in Lebanon. Uh, sure, the new president Joseph Aoun and the new prime minister Nawaf Salam, which is not he is not pro-Israel, Nawaf Salam, but he's a very big patriot, Lebanese patriot, and they understand very well the situation, and they are eager to bring back Lebanon to a normal state. And I think also the Lebanese people, not only the Lebanese, not only the Christians and the Druze and the Sunni, also part of the Shia. Maybe not all, not for sure, not all of them, and maybe it's still not a majority in the Shia community, but I believe it will be changed. At the end of the day, these people are good people. They want to live a quiet life. They want to develop themselves. And they understood finally after 40 years that the so-called Mukawameh, the Hezbollah, they are not really the Mukawameh. They are the Iranian proxy in Lebanon,
Yep.
and they are fed up with them. The big issue is that the Lebanese regime has lost its capability of ruling the country, and they need to gain it again. And we, as the Americans and the Europeans and the Saudis and Qatar, we should help them. And this is the big opportunity that I see. Now that Iran, and never mind if there will be a change of regime in Iran or not, they are weak. They are very weak now. I don't believe that they will start spending again money on recuperating Hezbollah. They cannot afford it. And I think that they are, I hope that they understand that the tactic that they try to do by using Hezbollah as a proxy and Hamas as a proxy and the Houthis as a proxy, it's not the right way to deal with us. So I don't believe that they will again send $1 billion to Hezbollah.
Yeah, especially considering that the country is I mean their critical capabilities are in
Yes,
ruins,
they cannot afford it.
and they yeah, they're facing catastrophic economic situation, not to mention societal, and they're
Although,
yeah,
although we should say that as a Shiite radical regime, they don't care about the population. They care about the big idea
sure,
of exploiting the Shiite revolution in the world.
sure.
And this is also why they are developing the rockets, the ballistic rockets for 4,000 kilometers. I'm not saying that they are going to use it, but they are showing the Europeans that they can, and this is
Absolutely.
enough.
as part of their power projection and terrorizing and bullying.
Totally.
But what
So
you're saying
coming
is
back,
very different, very interesting, Gidi, about the vibe, different vibe in Lebanon, because I certainly have been seeing that myself. But what you're saying is that it's not limited to the Sunnis, the Christians, the Druze, that almost it's impossible for it to not seep into the Shiite Lebanese community. And just for our viewers, this is the base. This is from which the population from which Hezbollah recruits from. This is where they indoctrinate, where they give them basically a kind of deal where they provide them with schools and fuel and social services, and in exchange they recruit for their terror army. And nobody has done more to research this than the Alma Center. So I would recommend that everybody goes to the Alma Center and looks at those reports. And Gidi, you're saying that you sense in your sensors, the regional Lebanese sensors that you have in your very, very considerable experience with this arena, that something is changing, not only in the non-Shiite Lebanese society, but potentially even in the Lebanese Shiite society as well.
it's still very fragile, and it's very yes, it's fragile, and it it depends now how Hezbollah will conduct. But I think that we are in an opportunity time to change not only the relations with Lebanon, but also I am a believer about Syria. Maybe we'll talk about it later, but also us as Israelis, we need to think or to understand at the end of the day, we need, after all, we need to do peace, or we need to speak with our enemies, not with our friends. And it doesn't matter if our enemy is a Christian Lebanese that wants to make peace with Israel, or a crazy jihadist, Sunni jihadist that is ruling now Syria. We need to speak with the boss, with the guy that is holding the steer and ruling the country. And it's not that they are now Israeli lovers, but there are many mutual interests for us and the Lebanese together, and for us and the Syrians. And I think that this is the big opportunity, and we need to try it. I think that I feel that we are strong enough after the 3 last years. We are strong enough to try it.
So let me test this theory because it's very interesting, and I certainly welcome it, Gidi, because what we need to hear new ideas and new perspectives. I think it's vital not to get stuck on the old paradigms. So any alert of a change, I think is something that is very important to highlight. So let me challenge this, or at least try to understand it. My understanding is, and my long-term strategic hope is that once the military terrorist power of the jihadists is broken and is proven to be broken and is preserved, the gains are preserved, their capabilities are degraded, and they're not allowed to rebuild, not in southern Lebanon, not in Gaza, anywhere where they threaten us. My assumption is that eventually this will take the currency, the credibility of the jihadist or Islamist idea. It will start to go down like a stock, like a broken
The
stock.
Shia.
So in this case, I'm talking about a general theory, but let's now apply it to the Shiite. The idea, my hope is that once they realize that the jihad has failed and Israel is stronger, at some point, cognitively, the base will start questioning the jihad. It will start to say, this isn't working. This is not going to work. Is that what you're identifying? Is this the kind of gradual change that you're seeing?
Exactly. And I think that we should look back at history. I'm not the kind of guy that I think that the history is renewing everything every time
Hmm.
again. I believe, but that we need to understand the history, and here in the Middle East, it's very important because there is a basic conflict in the Islam between the Sunnah and the Shia. And the Shia are more or less 14% of all the Muslims in the world. And they were always inferiors, less educated, less economically developed, less everything, especially in Lebanon. And they had, in the last 40, 45 years, they had a very good prosperity because of what happened in Iran and Hezbollah. But now it's changing because people understand that actually their state of their economical state didn't change. The Muqawama didn't change anything. The Muqawama and the Iranian regime, they are feeding themselves in order to exploit the Islamic revolution. And this conflict between the inside the Islam, it's something basic that is not going to change.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to get worse now because the situation of the Islamic world today, the place that they are today, the bad place, is just because of the Shia. So, and this
You're talking about
very
Lebanon
important.
specifically, or the wider Middle East?
Lebanon specifically, but I believe that it will happen also in Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the only country, although it's not an Arab country, is Iran, that there is a majority, or yes, the biggest minority is the Shia in Iran. So I believe that the regime will be going on to be a Shia regime. But I believe that somehow they will change. I don't know. It won't be maybe the IRGC or something else. Maybe the army will take power. I don't know. It will take time. It won't happen yesterday, tomorrow. It might take 1 year or 2 years also.
Right.
But one of the things that we need to understand living in the Middle East is to be patient. This is the basic. Every Bedouin, every Arab will tell you, you need to be patient.
And it's one of the things that we Israeli Jews are not very good at as a
We are
whole.
very bad at
We are bad at it, and we've kind of become an extension of sort of, the American instant coffee expectations here. And I totally agree with you, Gidi. This is something that I've been preaching as well. I'm all for strategic patience as long as we see that the tide of history and the tide of events is working in our favor, which I believe strategically after October 7th is the case. I think that
in the long run, yes.
in the long run, yeah, I think that we are flipping the equation. So let me ask you, in terms of the current situation in Lebanon, we've got divisions, IDF divisions maneuvering in a limited way in southern Lebanon. We've got massive airstrikes targeting Hezbollah in Beirut and across Lebanon as well. We've got some incredible statements that really back up your theory. The Prime Minister of Lebanon, Nawaf Salam, said in an interview yesterday that Hezbollah is responsible for this situation, that Iran is responsible, that Iranians are hiding in the non-Shiite areas of Beirut, and they're risking everybody by doing this. Really, just, and he also was honest for, and said, we're not going to confront Hezbollah militarily, basically admitting that they can't, but basically, laying the blame for this war on the radical Shiite Hezbollah Iranian axis, not blaming Israel. So that is a real change. There's no question that this is a real change. The first time I remember a Lebanese government talking like this, and I'm not including the older, Lebanese governments from the 80s, that this is a different era. So what do you think the next step should be? Because It seems that the first dilemma that we're facing here, if we're trying to bring this down now into policy, is once the ground maneuver ends in southern Lebanon, at some point it has to end. What happens with the Shiite Lebanese? Are they going to be allowed to come back? Because with them they will bring Hezbollah, and we don't want to go back to the old cycle. So, what do you think we should do here?
It depends now. I believe that in the near future, we'll start talking with the Lebanese government. And we need to reach some kind of agreement that the first step in this agreement should be that Hezbollah will be disarmed. And together with this first part of the agreement, we need to agree also that the Lebanese government should take over all the management of South Lebanon immediately, South Lebanon and Beirut.
Mm-hmm.
We can leave the Bekaa afterwards, but South Lebanon and Beirut is the key for this agreement, and we should agree that the civilians will come back at first only to the villages that are until 5 kilometers from the border, but only after disarming Hezbollah. Now, disarming Hezbollah, it's not only a problem between the Lebanese government and Hezbollah, because in the Taif agreement, which was signed in 1991, finishing the civil war in Lebanon that started in 1975, it's agreed that all the militias in Lebanon will be disarmed.
Right.
It never happened.
Right.
It never happened. And I believe that Hezbollah will say, okay, let's disarm everyone. So it will be also an interior
security forces.
No, interior talks between
all
the castes in Lebanon in order to disarm themselves. And this is also important for the future of Lebanon and for us too. So I believe that in the next year, 2 years, most of the population will not be allowed to come back to the border.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of or let's say in the future, you cannot avoid them of coming back.
Right.
This is their land. These are their houses. Now, in the moment when Hezbollah will disarm, they might be, and they are legit in Lebanon. They are Lebanese. It's not like, I don't know.
Yeah. They're not Iranian invaders. Yeah.
Exactly. So you cannot, if they want to be part of the Lebanese politics, they are welcome. But there is, Amal is waiting for them, because actually the biggest political party, Shiite political party in Lebanon is Amal.
Give us a little bit of background about Amal, because most of our viewers probably won't be very familiar with who Amal is.
Amal is a militia that was founded by I forgot his name, the imam that was kidnapped, actually was kidnapped by the Libyan.
Oh, right. A Shiite Lebanese imam was the founder in the 80s or 70s?
In the late 60s.
Oh, even further back. Mm-hmm.
No, in the 70s. In the 70s, and then Nabi Berri. Since then, he is the general secretary of Amal. By the way, Israel was talking with Amal, was talking with Nabi Berri, and I remember those days. I always said that I prefer the alliance with Nabi Berri, with the Shia, than with the Christians in Beirut.
How come?
First of all, they are stronger. Second, the Lebanese Falangot, they are actually fascists, and they are not representing the South Lebanese Christians.
Interesting.
And most of south of Lebanon, the border with Israel, are Shia. And I don't know if you know, but the Lebanese regime and the Israeli state, we never had any conflict since 1948. All the conflict were with the PLO or with Hezbollah.
Yeah, there was always an external or an internal non-state terror organization
Yes,
that took advantage of Lebanon's weakness and used it as a staging ground to attack us. And that those were always the conflicts in Lebanon. Absolutely. And it actually amazes me, Gidi, because, when I do a little bit of research into the PLO, it seems to me that the PLO is the pioneer of this. When they set up base in southern Lebanon, when they were kicked out of Jordan after
exactly.
Black September,
Black September.
and they're the ones who pioneered so many of the things that we're seeing now, firing on northern communities. This goes back to the 70s. Rockets
Of
have
course,
been,
of
it's the
course,
PLO that started all of this.
of course. I remember as a young soldier and a young officer in the Golani Brigade, I was here sitting in the border in the mid-70s, fighting the PLO, not any Shia.
Right.
And the first Christians that came asking for help from Israel was in 1976 in Metula, in what is known as the Vice Gate in Metula. They were coming and asking for help, and together with them came people from the Shiite community in El Khiyam.
Mm-hmm.
And then we started by giving them medical help, and we ended up bringing them inside Israel, giving them military training, and this is how we started the relationship with the South Lebanon.
Right. Right. So, Israel has always been deeply involved in Lebanon and all of its neighbors have been, Syria as well, because it brings in, it always sort of seems to be a reflection of the regional conflict. If in the past it was the PLO or the Pan-Arab movement that used the PLO, now it's Hezbollah that's being used by Iran. Lebanon is always going to be used by the regional powers to attack and defend. It's the staging ground, which is, I guess, a curse for the Lebanese people, and it's a curse for us as well because we have to pay the price. So we're now talking about the beginning of a change. We hope that we see the beginning of a change there. And so you're saying, if I understand correctly, at some point in the longer term, once disarmament of Hezbollah becomes feasible, then we can start looking at letting the Shiite residents back. So let me challenge you on one point. There are some who say Hezbollah is never going to disarm. And if we're not the ones who do it, the Lebanese government, even if it has the best intentions, you know very well, better than I, what the Lebanese army is made up of. 50% of them are Shiites themselves, approximately. And it seems, you could make the argument that they have two choices, the Lebanese authorities. Either accept Hezbollah as it is, good statements, but very little action. Or if they're serious about disarming Hezbollah, it's going to be a civil war. It's a civil war, and there's no other way for them to do it. Do you agree that those are the two options facing the Lebanese state?
I don't think that there are only two choices.
Okay.
First of all, I want to say that Israel shouldn't be the leader of this change in Lebanon. We should be very careful and not to try to be the leaders, because we should be the third party, not the main party. We should let someone else to lead it together with the Lebanese regime, and us helping from outside in order to build again the Lebanese as a free country. It might be the Americans, although I don't think that President Trump is too much interested in Lebanon. And I think it should be maybe the Saudis, and first of all, because they have the interest, they have the money,
Yeah.
and they are looking somehow to gain some leadership in the Middle East, which they lost it last years. And they are very disappointed from their connections with the Assisi that disappointed them now during the last war. So I think that, and it will be right for us to try to resolve this problem inside the Middle East without foreign European intervention or American intervention. They have the money, they have the power, they have the many interests in Lebanon. It's a gate for us to renovate our talks with the Saudis in order to sign some treaty with them. So I think that this might be a good opportunity. It's a good opportunity as an opposition to Turkey.
Right.
So I think now that it might be interesting to do it through the Saudis.
And the Saudis used to have a deep connection in Lebanon. They used to be the backers of the
Of course,
Sunnis, and financially, yeah.
All the financial structure in the Middle East was through Lebanon in the past.
Right.
So I think that this might be an interesting idea to try to think about. I think that we must try to do something new, something that we never tried to do, something that will be a game changer, and not again trust the Americans, trust the French. We're living in the Middle East. We are some kind of a small-scale superpower in the Middle East now. We are very powerful. We have a lot of things to provide, to sell to the Arab world.
Yes.
As the desalination of water, treating water, agriculture, food security, all these things. I'm not talking about
air defenses.
That's my next set. Yeah. That's not only security. We have many other things to sell them, and this is what brings the interests together that can solve this problem.
Okay, very, very interesting, and very hopeful, and I think that this is something that we should definitely monitor and come back and see how this unfolds. Now, you mentioned Syria. Now, here I have to admit that I'm a lot less optimistic because I don't see any signs that this new regime, the al-Shara regime, is genuinely moderate. I'm looking at the educational system that they're already promoting.
Not moderate.
It's not moderate, right? So, but what are we supposed to do with Syria? On the one hand, they are enemies of Hezbollah, and I think it's important for our viewers to remember that they are
big enemies of Hezbollah.
Big enemies. Hezbollah was fighting them when they were basically holed up in Idlib, slaughtering them throughout Syria, and especially in Idlib, where al-Shara was basically running his little fiefdom until he took over the whole of Syria. And the reason that he was able, him and his organization, Hayat al-Tahrir, to launch the attack that took over all of Syria is because Hezbollah was taken out of commission by Israel in Operation Northern Arrows in 2024. That was a direct domino effect in Syria. So, actually, they owe us a lot if you think about it. These the new Syrian Sunni rulers, but where do you see the silver lining there? Because if they're Islamists and they're committed to long-term jihadist thinking, what are we supposed to do with Syria?
First of all, the fact is that they are ruling Syria.
Right.
Okay, this is the fact. And we need to live together with them. Since 1974, we had a very quiet border with Syria. And actually today it's also relatively quiet. And Eshara, whether we like him or not, I think that he, first of all, before being a radical Islamic, he is a Syrian patriot. He wants to rule Syria. He understands how much problematic is Syria because, again, it's a country which doesn't have any nationality. A lot of castes, a lot of religions, and it's not so easy. And he understands, he's very intelligent, a very intelligent guy, I think it looks like.
Oh yeah,
And I
he
think
looks
that he
intelligent.
understands. And I'm not hoping him to fall in love in the Jews.
Right.
I'm hoping that we will show him that we have mutual interests together, and his interests with us are much more important than Turkey. Turkey cannot offer him anything but military assist.
Yeah.
Turkey is in bankruptcy. They cannot invest in nothing.
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia and Qatar, for him, are better investment. So if we will speak with him, we'll talk with him, we need to try to find a way to reach not a peace agreement.
Okay.
Not a peace agreement, not lovey-dovey, okay? We need to reach some kind of agreement, a non
Aggression
fight,
pact. Yeah, non-aggression pact. Uh-huh.
not non-aggression pact, yes, and that's all.
Okay.
For the main for now, maybe in the future, I don't know. It won't change as long as Eshara is there, the ruling Syria. They are radicals,
Yeah.
Islamic radicals.
Right.
It doesn't mean that he needs to be to fight the jihad against the Jews. The jihad in the Islam is not the main issue. Is not the main issue. The jihad is the main issue maybe in the Shia, but it's not the main issue. It's not everything. It's not life. So
Gidi, what's the difference? Here's the question that I'm trying to answer, and I haven't found a clear answer to it. Maybe you can help me. What's the difference between, say, Hamas before October 7th, when they were signaling to us and deceiving us and saying we're worried about the economy and we're open to long-term ceasefires and hudna? What's the difference between that and Syria? Is it because the Syrians are genuinely busier? They're not focused on conflict with Israel. They're not Palestinian jihadists. They're Syrian Islamists. Is that the difference, or is it the same thing? And we're walking into a trap once again. Believing that we can offer them economic benefits and get them to stop thinking about jihad.
First of all, let's start by saying that we don't have to believe them, and we always have to hold our big stick in one hand, ready to hit, okay, to strike.
Right.
That's life in the Middle East. You should be very strong, and this we need to understand. We should be all the time very alert. Hamas, it's not only a radical organization, they are also Palestinians, and they are fighting to gain Palestine against us. There is no solution. What they are asking and what we are willing to give them, it doesn't come together, and there is no solution to this problem. So this is the main issue.
They are
Okay?
committed to the destruction of Israel as a
Yes.
religious decree, but so you think that the al-Shara regime doesn't have that same level of commitment to the destruction of Israel?
No, the commitment is to building the Syrian regime, the Syrian country. It's first, then destroying Israel.
I see.
And again, I'm not saying that he is not a Israeli lover, but he understands that he needs us, and we need to show him that he needs that he needs
I
us.
understand. Hmm.
And we need to try and to try every opportunity that comes in our hands to change what we've been doing for almost 80 years here, to change and to try something new.
Right.
And now, since we are so strong, and since after October 7, somehow, I hope so, we understood our position in the Middle East, we're strong enough to try it.
Sure. And you're saying it's not at the expense of any military activity, whatever necessity we will continue to
Of
initiate.
course,
But you're
of
saying
course.
on top of that strength, we should try new tools to capitalize on that. It's a very interesting argument that you're making and a compelling one. Let me ask you in the time that we have left about Iran, the elephant in the room. First of all, how do you think this war is going to affect Hezbollah? Because we all know that Hezbollah is the extension of Iran. That's why it was built to begin with. So if the head of the octopus is weakened and degraded, this will have an automatic weakening effect on the arm in Lebanon. Do you agree with that?
It depends how the war will end.
Right.
But I remember that in early 2024, in one of the interviews in I-24, I said that one of the things that I'm afraid that will happen is that Israel will become the proxy of the United States in the Middle East. And this is what happened. Actually, we are the proxy of President Trump, not the United States, President Trump in the Middle East. And I'm saying it again because now when President Trump is negotiating, and if he's not negotiating now, he will be negotiating tomorrow or next week with Iran. What is important for him is to get an agreement that will be according to the American interest. And in this place, the American interest and the Israeli interest is not the same, because Trump is looking for the Iranian energy, and he's looking for open the Hormuz pass, and he's looking to finish the nuclear plan in Iran, but he doesn't care about Hezbollah. I don't believe that he cares about Hezbollah very much. And again, we will, if the war will end next week, will be a ceasefire, what will happen here in the border, in the northern border? Shall we go on fighting with Hezbollah? I don't believe that he will not let us go on fighting with Hezbollah. We will find ourselves again that we wanted to strike hard Hezbollah and we didn't finish the job.
Why couldn't we continue even if the Iran arena settles down?
Because we need the Americans with us,
Hmm.
because all the Europeans will stand against us, and at the end of the day, all the ammunition that we are using is still coming from the United States. And
Right.
he will close.
So let me just throw in a counter view, if you will, and I'd love to get your responses. My view is that President Trump, when you look at the alternatives that existed in the United States, is almost or basically essentially a strategic miracle for the state of Israel, because his identification of Iran as a global threat and a threat to the United States, his joining of this war, and the support that he has provided Israel in Gaza, in Lebanon until the ceasefire, and now joining this war against our biggest existential enemy is would have been basically a wild dream come true under previous American administrations, which I don't think we would have even dared to imagine. So, in my view, the joint interests of the United States and Israel far outweigh uh, differences. And I agree with you that, of course, there are differences because they're different countries and they have different locations, and it makes perfect sense. So that's the basis at which I look at everything else. Now, I agree with you that that it's possible that there's a divergence of certain interests between the United States and Israel. But the fundamental question is, if the Iranian regime is weakened, and I'm sure you agree that it's going to emerge from this war very weakened compared to what it was before, wouldn't that at least have a positive effect on Hezbollah, not just in terms of funding, in terms of weapons transfer, in terms of image in the Middle East, the Shiites, all the things that you talked about, the Sunnis?
Yes, it will. It
Okay,
will.
so you agree with that? Okay,
I agree with that, but it's not enough
okay,
because after all, the Europeans, or better said, the only ones that are looking or talking or doing something about Iran and the threats that they are to the world is Israel and the United States. The
right.
Europeans are not doing anything. The Emirates and Saudi Arabia, they are not doing anything. Everyone is afraid to do something.
Yep.
So now in the next election, Trump is not going to be, is not going to, is finishing his time as president. Never mind who will come. He won't be pro-Israel like Trump.
I
We are
think that's a
losing.
safe bet. That's a Trump is really a one of a kind, I think, for us. I
Is a
agree.
one of a kind, but he's very temporary. He's an 80 years old guy that might disappear tomorrow morning. And then what?
Yeah, and that goes back to your concern. You're talking about the longer term strategic relationship, and so your concern is what? That we are too dependent on
Well,
the mood, the temporary mood in the White House, even if it's incredibly pro-Israel now. You're saying what happens tomorrow? We can't.
there is an
Yeah.
incredibly match of interests between Netanyahu and Trump because of politics, internal politics, nothing else. Now, if Trump will not be president tomorrow morning, everything will be changed. We cannot afford ourselves as a country to depend so much only in the only on the United States.
So
We
what should
cannot
we
afford
do?
it.
What should we do, Gidi? What's the alternative?
First of all, the alternative is to develop again our relations with Europe, and even more important than Europe is the Middle East, Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, Qatar. I don't think, but the Emirates, of course, these countries, they need us. They need us.
India?
India, of course, but India is not the Middle East.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the Arab world.
Right. Right.
But India is a superpower. Maybe not military, but they are a superpower economically.
Yeah, and they're
which is more important.
very interested in growing closer to us. That's clear.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so you're talking about diversifying our alliances and not putting all the eggs in one basket, which listen, that makes sense. It makes sense, that concern. And I think that, any strategy that has a single point of failure, whatever it is going to be a fragile strategy. So even generally speaking, it makes a lot of sense, the concerns that you have. And we really don't know what the next American elections are going to bring. The only thing I would say is there are some people that say that, the American security establishment is very aware of what its interests are. It's aware of how important Israel is for American security in this region and globally. And so people are hopeful that those in the know in the United States, in the intelligence and the defense establishments, their view is not going to be thrown in the garbage just because a new government takes power. But we don't know if that
But
assumption is true or not.
but
Yeah,
Yaakov, I'm not especially in the American politics,
yeah,
but I do see what the Democrats, what kind of Democrats are speaking today, what kind of voice of Democrats you hear today mostly, and
yeah.
also the Republicans.
The MAGA, the isolationist, not MAGA, I should say the isolationist part of the MAGA movement. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
So who knows? Who knows? We need a backup.
Yeah, makes sense. And let me ask you a final question, Gidi, in terms of the situation in the Gaza Strip. It's the arena that used to be the main arena, and now it's last in line. But I think we're going to be hearing about it sooner rather than later because the current status quo, I don't think, is tenable. We're not going to accept dividing Gaza up with Hamas and letting them, slowly start to regrow. How do you think everything that we've been talking about is going to affect Gaza?
Truly to say, I don't know, but I feel that we'll need to have another round with the Hamas because we left there everything open. President Trump lost his interest, and they are building again their military power. So there is no status quo today. And I'm very worried about it.
So you think another military round is inevitable? And then after that, do we
I don't
have
know.
a
I really don't know what to. I wouldn't like to try to to give some kind of prophecy. It feels to me like a prophecy, but I feel very bad about what is happening there. We left it open, and it doesn't look good.
Giddy, we're definitely going to have to continue this conversation because I think we've left a lot of leads
I
that
hope so.
our viewers are going to want to hear your take on the future developments of many of the things that we've talked about. This has been fascinating for me. You've brought many fresh perspectives, which I think are very important to hear. And this is what we want to do in this podcast. So thank you so much for joining me, for taking the time
Thank
to
you.
share your insights with our viewers. And we're going to arrange the next conversation as soon as we can. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yaakov.